The man in the suit found me during my shift. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, conveyor belt dragging cans and bread past my deadened stare. He stepped out of line, cutting through the hum of beeping registers and bored chatter, and came straight to me. "My grandfather passed," he said, voice clipped, rehearsed. His eyes didn't soften. "He left you this." He set a plain envelope on the counter between us. A letter. A check. The world slowed. My hands itched, but I didn't touch it. Not yet. Because the last time I heard that old man's name, he was missing. Silent. Gone. And I had assumed the worst. But this was something else. Something I hadn't prepared for. The man in the suit didn't wait for me to open it. Didn't linger for questions. He just left, his polished shoes clicking across tiles, while I stood there, frozen, holding a dead man's parting gift. I should have felt relief, gratitude, maybe even grief. Instead, I felt suspicion. The old man came every week. Same jacket, same worn bills. Always short, $3, $5, sometimes $7. I paid the difference, quietly, for 2 years. He never knew. Or so I believed. Now his grandson handed me $500,000 like a neat little bow on a story I thought had ended in silence. But it didn't add up. Why me? Why not family? Why would a stranger, the cashier who slipped him change, be worth this fortune? Unless my part in his life wasn't as invisible as I thought. Unless someone had been watching. I looked at the letter that night. His handwriting shook across the page. Words of gratitude. Words that sounded too clean, too final. But in between the lines, something felt staged. As if the ink was trying too hard to be sincere. And my gut whispered, "There's more." I started digging, quietly. Obituaries, court records, property transfers. A name that kept repeating. The grandson. Executor of the estate. Too smooth. Too quick. I visited the hospital records under the guise of billing questions. No mention of long treatments. No trace of family visits. The old man hadn't been cared for. He had been managed. And then, bank records. Traced from his account to a trust. Withdrawals that didn't match his lifestyle. Money funneled somewhere else, months before his death. I kept working shifts, smiling at customers, scanning groceries. Inside, my stomach coiled tighter each day. The grandson wasn't grieving. He was laundering. The check in my hand wasn't kindness. It was cover. The truth came in a neat folder mailed from a lawyer I contacted off record. A quiet favor, bought with the last of my savings. The old man's will had been altered 3 months before his death. His signature shaky, almost forced. Every major asset, property, savings, investments, redirected to the grandson, except one line, one anomaly. A lump sum, $500,000, addressed to the cashier who helped me. Too precise, too absurd. Almost as if it had been planted there to clean the grandson's conscience, to make him untouchable. But paper leaves trails, dates, witnesses. One of those witnesses, I discovered, was the grandson himself. I held the copy in my hands, staring at the proof. He had orchestrated it. He had drained his grandfather. And in the end, he had tried to absolve himself by throwing scraps at me. $500,000, as if my silence could be bought. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I waited, watched, bided my time. When he returned to the store weeks later, arrogant, careless, I was ready. I slid the folder across the counter. No words, just the documents. The altered will, the signatures, the money trail. His eyes flickered as he skimmed. His face drained color. Lips parted, searching for excuses, for air. Finally, he whispered, "You don't understand." I understand perfectly, I said. My voice was calm. Ice. He looked at me like a drowning man reaching for a hand, but I gave him nothing. No threat, no deal, no mercy. I left the folder with him. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. And as he stood there, trembling, I walked away. I didn't cash the check. I didn't need it, because what he tried to bury had already unearthed him. I kept working shifts. Same lights, same beeps, same endless lines of faces. But inside, I was hollowed clean. The old man's gratitude had been twisted into currency. His death turned into a stage. But in the end, the grandson couldn't hide behind paper. The truth had teeth, and I let it bite him, quietly, in public, without raising my voice. I went back to scanning groceries. The machine beeped, the line moved, and for the first time in months, my hands were steady. Because I realized something simple, brutal, and final. I was never the one being bought. He was.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.